Welcome to another episode of Peculiar You, the podcast. I am your host, Rachel Ruby, and I'm so thankful that you're here to be with me for another conversation. Listen, before we get started, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I never take your support lightly or for granted, but I've received so many calls, so many FaceTimes, texts, DMs of just showing your support and just sharing the words. I see your shares, your comments, all of that. I appreciate it. Listen, we're going on this journey together. So listen, if you want to stay connected and you're new here, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, or also my website. It's at I Am Rachel Ruby. So today our conversation is about being different, and not just only being different, but embracing your difference. And so as I was preparing for our conversation, I was thinking about the day, the event, the time where I just realized that I was just different. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, I look like everybody, but I just feel different on the inside, right? And I couldn't think of like a pinpoint example of, bam, this is when it happened. I knew that there was a difference in me compared to my surroundings, right? I couldn't think of a specific time. I guess I've always been different, right? And I feel like there are I am for, or what God has called me to is for people that are different, that are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that embrace or are learning to embrace who God has called them to be. Maybe you don't talk like everybody else. Maybe you don't have the same swag, or you don't carry yourself the same way as everybody else. But God has called you for such a time as this to make an impact in this world. So listen, I've always felt a difference, right? And I was thinking about in my younger years when I was 18 years old. I just turned 18. I was thinking about a time where it was my first and my only visit to the club. Lord have mercy. I found myself in the club in Tennessee, right? Freshly 18. And I remember paying my good hard money to get into this club. And once I got in there, everybody was having the time of their life. Like, everybody around me was having the time of their life. Everybody dancing, everybody drinking, everybody smoking, like everybody having the time of their life. And I just remember being so anxious, being so paranoid, being so like, I don't belong here. Like, everybody was having the time of their life, but I in the inside, I wasn't even saved just yet. This was a couple of months before I got saved. I wasn't saved just yet, but I had a feeling on the inside that something was telling me that, girl, you so much different from this environment. Um I don't belong here. And so that's what I think about when I'm saying I'm different. And it wasn't until I went to Tennessee State University. You see me repping? Okay. Okay. I got TSU on today, and that's a TSU flag in the back. It's like, what is that scary thing? It's a tiger. It's just TSU. But anyway, so it wasn't until I went to Tennessee State University, the land of gold and sunshine by the Cumberland's fertile shore. Uh, it wasn't until I went to TSU that I began to, I believe, embrace the difference that God had called me to. Um I began to grow in my confidence of my difference, if that makes sense. And I think a big caveat, or a big reason why I was able to embrace being peculiar is because at TSU, God has strategically placed me around like-minded people. Now, was everybody around me talking about Jesus and living for Jesus? Maybe they was talking about it, but they weren't living for it. But he did have a space for me, and people prepared for me that encouraged me and that were like-minded believers. And so I'll talk about it in depth later. But if you're going to stay focused on this peculiar journey, you have to have the right people around you, right? They are crucial and critical to your growth as a believer and as embracing this peculiar journey. And so, like I said, I've always felt this difference, and I've come across people that are just different too. And it's not a difference that says I'm better than you, or I'm uppity, or I think I'm stuck up, or I think I'm this or that. It's just a difference that God has placed on the inside of people. And I keep saying difference or different, but what I really mean is peculiar, right? And in episode 1, I talked about how I began selling this peculiar brand several years ago. I think it was pre-COVID. So maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I began selling this peculiar brand. And I was selling the brand, but really it was a lifestyle. It was an expression of my lifestyle. And one day I realized I was so honored. I still am to this day when I see people wear the t-shirts or whatever I create. When I see people wear the t-shirts, but one day it hit me and I said, they're wearing the brand, they're wearing the t-shirt, but they have no idea what they're wearing, what it means. There is a undue ignorance almost of what they're wearing. And so I think it's my responsibility to explain what it means to be peculiar and how to embrace this lifestyle. So I'll walk through several different things in my journey, and maybe you can relate to it. But what does it really mean to be peculiar? I get it from the text 1 Peter 2:9, where God declares that you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. And so what it simply means when I say peculiar, this is peculiar you, the podcast. I'm so Southern. I got so much so much Southern on it, but you hear what I say, peculiar. What it means is it's God's own chosen people. It's used by Christians to emphasize their nonconformity to the world. To be peculiar is to be sanctified, set apart, and chosen. The Bible talks about being not conformed to this world, but being transformed, being not conformed to this world, but being transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Bible talks about that we are in this world, but we're not of this world. And so when I talk about being peculiar, I think it goes beyond just being a casual Christian. It goes beyond just saying, Jesus saved my soul from damnation. No, being peculiar means I embrace this difference, and I will do what God has called me to do with this difference. It's like I said in the scripture, it's in this world, but not of this world. And I was cooking one day. I was cooking some pasta one day. I put some water in the pot, and then I put oil in the water. And I said, Lord, this is exactly a good visual of what it is to be peculiar. Because I think I'm a little bit smart, but science wasn't my area per se. And as I put this oil in the pot with water, I saw a science experiment just come to life right before my eyes. And y'all know this. I put water and oil in the same pot, and water and oil don't mix. And so that's the same way that you can be peculiar. You can literally be in this world, but you don't have to be of this world. There needs to be a difference when you walk into this world. There needs to be a difference on the inside of you. And so what we have to go through, or what we have to come to, is to realize, yeah, I'm different. And then 2, to embrace that you've called me to be different. And to be different is not just to be stuck up, or to, feel like I'm better than somebody, or I follow God and they ain't nothing because they don't do the same things that I do. No, you're peculiar for a purpose. Come on, say that. I'm peculiar for a purpose. All your life you've been different. All your life, something has felt like, man, I don't fit into this environment. Something. Look, you could be in the back of the room, but you always gonna come to the front. Why? Because you're different. You 2 Chainz say, I'm different. I'm different. And so when I think about peculiar, I think about several characters in the Bible, but one thing comes to mind, and that is the life of Jeremiah, right? Because you're peculiar for purpose. And sometimes in life, can I talk to you? We just talking now. We just having a conversation. So you got to talk back to me. Listen, sometimes in life, there is an emptiness. There is a void. There is a longing that will reside on the inside of you contrary or regardless of how much money you make, how much stuff you got, how many bags, how many shoes, how many cars, how many properties, regardless of anything you have materialistic, there will be a void on the inside of you if you are not walking or understanding your purpose in life, what God has preordained you to be. Purpose is we make it complicated, but it's really simple. When I say your purpose, what I mean is why you're breathing, why God gave you life, what is the original intent for which you exist. And you will, like I said, never come to a place of fulfillment in life until you tap into why you even exist. And so, like I was saying, Jeremiah is one of them ones. Uh he is definitely him. In the Bible that I think of when I think about being peculiar, right? And the Bible records this in Jeremiah 1:5. I'm going to read it in the Message Bible. It says, "Before I shaped you in the womb, I knew all about you." This was God talking to Jeremiah. He said, "Before you saw the light of day, I had holy plans for you. I planned for you to be a prophet to the nation. That's what I had in mind for you." And so you're peculiar for purpose. Say, I'm peculiar for purpose. And so, but how do you unlock purpose? How do you unlock this purpose that God has put on the inside of you? How do you live a fulfilled life? You live a fulfilled life. You unlock purpose simply by going back to the one that created you and say, "Lord, what have you called me to do now?" Now, I may have wasted some time in the past. I may have not always made the best decisions, but what have you created me to do, and how can I execute it now? Because it's one thing to know what you're called to do, and it's another thing to execute or walk therein and what you have called him to do and what God has called you to do. And so it's very important that if you peculiar, that you embrace this purpose life. Can I tell you, you've been marked from birth, like Jeremiah? Can I tell you that you're different for a reason? Can I tell you that have confidence because God created you just the way that you are? But here's the thing. It's not enough to be peculiar. It's not enough to just have purpose. God gave mankind something called free will. And so what you have to do is have a yes, Lord, in your belly. I know what you've called me to do. I know who you've called me to be. And my answer is yes, Lord. I know peculiar people right now. I mean, the most talented people I've ever met in my life. I tell them this all the time. Listen, but they haven't came to a yes, Lord. Something happens when you are peculiar with a purpose and you say, yes, Lord. And so to unlock purpose, you go back to your creator to say, Lord, what have you called me to do? And I say, yes, Lord, to that. I begin to be obedient even in the small things. It's very critical. It's very important because to be peculiar, it requires you to be bold. It requires you to be courageous. It requires you to go against the grain sometimes. It requires you to be a pioneer. It requires a great responsibility. And I know I have had experience in my life where I've known I've been peculiar for a long time. And I've had experience in my life where I meet young ladies and I just see the same thing upon their life. And I just see a difference on their life. It's so crazy. You could be in a room full of people, but when you're different, you'll always stand out. And so I've encountered people like that, younger women than me, young adults, and I almost go into a weep, like just I've experienced several times just to cry because not because it's a bad thing to be peculiar, but I know the cost. I know the cost that it costs to be peculiar and to embrace this lifestyle. Like I said, you're gonna have to be bold. You're going to have to be courageous. You're going to have to live and say, yeah, if they talk about me, they talk about me. But I'm still going to do what God has called me to do. Why? Because I'm made for this. Like I said, 2 Chainz said, I'm different. And I embrace my difference. Look, I think this is a good place to close. We've just started the conversation. You know we're going deeper. I want to say thank you for joining me. And if this conversation has been a blessing to you in any way, at any point, do me a favor and text two people you know. Text them the link. Tell them to tap in. Peculiar You is dropping every other Tuesday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. My godmom texted me. She said, what time the podcast drop? I said 7 a.m. She said, no, I can't make it that early. I said, girl, just catch the replay. Godmom, y'all that ain't early birds, listen, just catch the replay. It'll be there when you wake up. All right, God bless you. I love you. Until next time, keep it peculiar. Peace.